Hello, this is Chuck Ridgway, Automation Technology Manager at Horner. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday live stream. Well, I'm pre-recording my video again this week. Last week, I was at the Tech Expo that Logic put on in Kansas City. This week, I'm on vacation. I'm here at Los Angeles Union Station, one of the truly great train stations in the United States. Just like last week, I was in front of Kansas City Union Station, and I just came off the Southwest Chief, which was a terrific ride from Chicago to Los Angeles. All right, enough about my vacation. Let's get to today's topic.
Okay, before we start, I want to apologize a little bit for my voice today. All these trade shows, talking to all these customers, it's a lot of fun, but it does take its toll on my voice. So a little apology for the frogginess today. Okay, our topic today is all about using a keyboard and a mouse with Canvas. We do get asked from time to time which of our OCS All-in-one Controllers can be used with a keyboard and mouse, and the answer is Canvas. Canvas is based on a custom, specialized, non-mainstream version of Linux under the hood. So it doesn't support just any old interface that, a general distribution of Linux would support, but it does support basic mouse support. So the answer is Canvas if you're looking to use a keyboard and a mouse. Now, before we dive into our topic in detail, I want to remind you that next week is Automate, and we're doing something a little different this year for our live stream from the show. We're going to do it on Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be pretty hectic at the show for a lot of reasons. And Thursday should be a pretty quiet day. Traditionally, it is. So we think we can bring you the best possible live stream show on Thursday as opposed to doing it on Tuesday or Wednesday. So don't let the time throw you off. If you can't make it to Detroit, and I do highly recommend that you come in person if at all possible, but if you can't make it to Detroit, check out our live stream on Thursday at 2 o'clock. We'll give you plenty of demos and maybe some interviews. You'll get to see some new products in detail that we'll be releasing this summer. It'll be really your last chance to see those until we actually launch the products, later on in the year. So I highly recommend you check out Automate. If you can't check out the live stream or in person, then, just check it out after the fact on replay. Okay, now for our topic, using a keyboard and a mouse with Canvas. This is really a pretty simple topic, so it's going to be a short session today. So we're going to talk about why you would use a keyboard and mouse, or maybe why you might not. Different applications where it makes sense, how you connect a keyboard and a mouse to Horner OCS, what interfaces are supported, and then we're going to do something kind of interesting. We're just going to take some keyboard and mice kind of that we find at the store and see if they work in the most basic fashion electrically. We're not going to be recommending specific keyboard and mice that, are of the consumer variety, but those are a good indication of the amount of standard USB interfaces that might be out there, both wired and wireless. So it should be an interesting exercise. Okay, so why use a keyboard and mouse with a Canvas? Well, let's first talk about why you might not. For most applications, touchscreens are really conducive to effective operator interaction. Maybe you're starting or stopping a machine, you're adjusting a set point, maybe you're selecting the next product to run from a recipe. All those things work really well with a touchscreen. There's not a lot of data entry required, and it's just really conducive. And also, some machine environments are just not great for a keyboard and a mouse. They're dirty, they're wet, there's not a lot of flat surfaces around. And again, the operators may not really need to do that much data entry anyway. But there are certainly cases in which it does make sense, and we're going to explore those next. So what are some of those situations? Well, let's talk about a control room style environment. Now, we're not necessarily saying it's got to be, the Houston Command Central for NASA or something like that. What we're talking about are temperature-controlled environments where it's not uncommon for the operator to be seated or maybe in a desktop environment while they're working. They have a mixture of computer monitors and, more industrial touchscreens, and keyboard and mouse input is something that they're used to for their normal job. So in that control room style environment, that makes a lot of sense. And when we say control room style environment, I mean, it could be on board a boat or a ship. It could be maybe in a airport environment. It could be in, maybe a barn type environment if we're talking agricultural, in a corner of the barn or something where they've got a workstation set up. There's just a variety of different scenarios where keyboard and mouse type input might make some sense. Also, applications with heavy data entry. So maybe there's, a lot of alphanumeric entry, and we've all struggled, with our phones and with other touchscreens using alphanumeric keyboards, on a traditional touchscreen. That can be tough. If you've got a lot of alphanumeric type data entry, or maybe a lot of numeric entry that requires a lot of precision, that's another scenario where, keyboards can be a real advantage. So there are certainly situations where it makes sense. Now, what kind of keyboard and mouse should you use? Well, let's talk electrically first of all. So any USB style mouse that uses a standard USB type driver will work fine, at least electrically. Now, we're not talking about, whether the keyboard or mouse will survive in the environment, whether we're talking about the amount of water or the dirt or electrical noise. All those are things that can cause traditional consumer level keyboard and mice to not work well in an environment. But at least electrically, functionally, if it's a USB style mouse, there's a pretty good chance it's going to work with Canvas. Now, what about wireless, you say? Well, if the wireless interface that plugs into the USB port on the OCS, if it looks just like a standard mouse input, then it very well could work. And we're going to test out or try out a few wireless devices today in our bench type testing, in addition to some wired devices. So it's possible they could work, but remember, industrial environments are often very electrically noisy. So they may have some issues with electrical noise potentially, so it's something you have to be aware of. Okay, now let's get to the kind of fun part of our session today, where I'm just going to take some devices out of the box that I bought from retail stores, and we're just going to see kind of a sampling of different USB style mice and keyboards, which ones tend to at least work in the most basic fashion and which ones maybe don't. Let's check it out.
Okay, let's connect a keyboard and a mouse to a Horner OCS, the Canvas OCS specifically. So if we want both of them connected at once, we're going to need to use a hub. Right now we've got wired keyboard and mouse, and there's only one USB port, so we need the hub. This is a hub that's fairly ruggedized. It's metal. We're only connecting a keyboard and a mouse to it, not very heavy from a power standpoint, so there's no extra power cable or anything. The whole hub and all the peripherals are all just powered from the OCS's USB port. And let's see how it works. So this is just, again, a standard USB mouse. You can see we have a mouse pointer here. And because we do have a keyboard, if we had to type in some ASCII, such as the name of the company that we're deploying our pizza oven to, along with a fairly long serial number, again, using the keyboard can sometimes be an advantage. Typing in the standard set point for the pizza oven, and I'm going to type in my name as the test technician along with the deployment date. Okay, so as you can see, if you've got a standard USB keyboard and mouse along with kind of a standard hub, again, you're going to want to choose hardware that's appropriate for the environment you're using it in. But if it's based on standard USB drivers, it will probably work. Okay, let's go ahead and test some wireless devices. I've got an inexpensive Logitech wireless mouse. Here it is right here. All right. It plugs in using a receiver. I've got it plugged directly into the OCS. I'm just going to be testing this mouse on its own. And it looks like that in its most basic form, it does work. Now, of course, it's a consumer level device. It also is a wireless device that, of course, is subject to interference. So this, of course, is not any kind of recommendation, just an indication that it seems to work in its most basic fashion. So this first Logitech wireless mouse that does claim to have Linux compatibility, and there is a customized version of Linux inside the Canvas OCS. It does seem to work in its most basic fashion. Okay, for this next test of a wireless device, this time I've got a combo, okay, a slim wireless combo from Logitech. And this time they don't claim any kind of Linux compatibility. They just mentioned, Windows and Chromebook, I believe. It also interfaces using a wireless receiver. But again, this is for both a keyboard and a mouse through one receiver. So let's see how this does. We've got our mouse pointer, you can see there on the screen, and it does appear to be working. The mouse does, okay, in its most basic fashion. Now let's try doing some typing here. That seems to work as well. So again, it looks like a lot of these wireless devices, even though they're not really very ruggedized, they're not designed for the factory floor, and you got to be careful using consumer level devices, especially if there's anything critical about your application. I'm not recommending this, but just giving you some information here. But it looks like a lot of the wireless mice even are using standardized drivers and could be compatible, at least in the most basic way, with the Canvas OCS.
We've got a couple of training classes coming up this upcoming quarter, a basic class May 20th, as well as an advanced class that starts June 24th. There are still a few seats available, so don't hesitate to sign up for those. Factory training is really a great way of getting all kinds of additional skills and details on the Horner OCS. If you want to interact with Horner Automation, lots of ways to do so on our website at hornerautomation.com, on our YouTube channel, as well as on LinkedIn. Now, this is our final reminder. Automate is next week. Come see us in person in Detroit, Michigan if you can. If you can't, the second best thing is to check out our live stream on Thursday. Not Tuesday, not Wednesday, but Thursday. We'll bring you a flavor of what's happening at the show. We'll give you demonstrations of our new products that'll be released this summer. So join us on Thursday, May 15th. And if you can't check that out, then you can always see the replay when that's available shortly after that.
All right, so that does it for this week. So until next week, let's all get out there and ride a train.